And a quick voice test. One, two, three, four, five. Glue Trooper headquarters, calling all glue troopers. Glue Trooper headquarters, calling all glue troopers. Come in, glue troopers. 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Okay, we got also an 8-second delay. So anything I say is getting to you 8 seconds late. And that seems to be what we have for today. Sounding's a bit low. Okay, I can cure that. I actually got it backed away from the mic here a little bit, but let me just turn this volume up a little bit. Is that any better? Move the microphone a little closer. Move closer to the mic. All right. Good afternoon, Charles. Fish, guys, is the sound coming in okay? Is that better? Turn it up here, too. Check, check. La, 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 la. Let me see. Let me check the gain on this thing. That's the volume. That's a headset volume. I need the gain over here. Pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Good. Good, good, good. I'm sitting there playing with the volume knob and realize that's the volume knob for the headset if you plug it into the microphone, not for the microphone. I need to go to the back of it and get to the gain. Well, let me just turn my smiling face on. Hi. All right. Yeah, I had the picture turned off, so, you know, I can pick my nose or whatever to the last second. And this time I made sure to eat lunch an hour before we, so hopefully I won't be calling the whole time this time. Greetings all. And Chris, I have the Banana Splits mug here with me too, along with my new little good luck charms. In fact, Chris, I got a bunch of pictures from the stuff you sent me that I took this morning just before I came out here, and we'll be getting into that. In fact, since I don't need to tell you guys the live stream is beginning, let me remove the intro, and let me start. Was this the one? Yeah. There. There's a little slideshow while we let everybody sign on. These are some pictures I took just a little while ago outside. I went outside to get better light. And these are the bases that Chris sent me. Chris from Ohio. And they really look good. I mean, they're... Chris, did you make those? Because they're awesome. I fixed the sign, by the way. I got it right side up. I know when the little street sign had snapped off, and for some reason I was thinking like a thing with lights on it, and I actually mounted it to the wrong end, but it was just a little touch. So turned around, glued it, and of course, there it is right there. Now it's correct. And hey, Kenneth. Amano, welcome aboard. Barry, glad to see you. I don't know what the deal. It's only got the one channel. I don't know what the deal is with the live streams, if it sends out notifications or not. You know, guys are probably aware that YouTube's had a lot of issues with notification stuff. People getting their channels people being unsubscribed so they don't get any notifications, and I'm not really sure. There's a lot of mysteries to how the YouTube works, and I don't even think they understand it all. It's gotten even too big for them. But those decals are coming off that Hellcat, those old Airfix decals. That's one reason I positioned it that way. The star on the other side peeled up really badly. I actually had to use some Tamiya glue to get it to set back down. The softener wouldn't do it. Those may have to come off and get replaced at some point. Well, Chris, you did a beautiful job. I'm really impressed with them. Those things are lovely. And they, you know, guys, they really, a nice little diorama base like that, even just for photography, really does enhance the model a lot. It really puts you in that universe. I mean, it even makes little toys look kind of serious. It's wonderful work. I don't think there's any way anyone could improve on those. I'm not sure why that one's in sideways. Morning, David. Hey, DeCam, glad you made it. Wayne, welcome aboard. I'm just going to let this run a couple of cycles. And for those who just signing on, Chris made all of these diorama bases. That's why I wanted to show them. We're going to talk about them some more. Oh, thank you, Chris. And you're right. Those bases really do make them pop. It really is. I, at some point, planned to stick those things in the light box. I just didn't have time to. I was actually going to do it, but I just had too many moving parts going today. But I'm going to stick those in the light box and get some, you know, get out the big camera with the long focal length and get some real crisp pictures of them. These are just cell phone pictures. And hey, Vic, glad you made it. I would think, getting about what Barry was asking, I would think if a live stream kicks off, you would get a notification, but it does things I can't figure out sometimes. And at some point, I want to take that road base and one of the model cars out and get the right angle distance from the trees to do a genuine, real forced perspective shot. It'll look really good. Yeah, I'm sure some will make it into the viewers build. Well, it's 2:01, so I guess we can get rolling. For some reason, the GB seems to pop best against it, probably because of the scale and everything, and that red against the green and the gray. And it just really looks good. Hey, Adam. John, welcome. Kit Bash Robocop. It's funny you should mention that, John. I was just thinking earlier today, somebody asked, oh, before I forget, there's a couple of things I want to ask. One, somebody asked if there was any place they could find mini Borg. They're getting into Star Trek, and I don't know anybody that makes them. But that got me wondering, if you took like 1/35th scale infantry and just started gluing greeblies on them, if you could just make, you know, and wires and stuff, you just make your own Borg out of any figurine, probably, since there's no real coherence to the way they're shaped and everything for all the Star Trek fans out there. And God knows we all probably have enough scrap stuff in our junk drawers and spares boxes to make them to make all kinds of greeblies and put it on any size figure. I don't think he wanted an action figure. I think he wanted a mini, like I don't know what he didn't really go into detail on. He just asked if there were any mini Borgs, and then they went, what's mini? They just kind of popped the thought in there. They'd probably be the easiest thing in the world to make. John Kitt, who hopefully will join us here in a little bit, took a tanker, an U.S. Army tanker with the helmet and everything, and he said it was real easy to modify the guy into his jacket and helmet and everything into a civilian motorcycle racer. So in a lot of ways, start off with a basic figure. It can be really easy to make them look like something. You know, of course, we're all pretty imaginative, so we don't have too much trouble. You know, a little putty, a little sanding, a little X-Acto knife work, filing, and, you know, anything can become anything. Also, and of course, I'm forgetting who it was. I've had somebody ask me if anybody has a I believe it was 1/30 scale B-29 turrets. I thought I had the 1/144 scale ones from that Minicraft, because I made a Weather B-29, which is what my dad worked on in the Air Force. So it didn't have the gun turrets, but I haven't been able to find them yet. Yeah, I imagine it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Figure kits would be pretty easy to modify into that, and so there was that. Uh, let's see. So I wanted to throw that out there. If anybody knows where some, 1 to 30, 1 to 25 scale B-29 turrets are, let us know. Of course, my parts box is just that. It's an absolute mess. I used to have them fairly sorted: bombs here, wheels here, people there, structures and landing assemblies here. But over time, it just all turned into, just got dumped so many times. Are those decals on the SU Redstone tail? Those are those roll prints that are stickers. Someone sent one to me, and then I also learned you can make use download copies of, and just use white glue. So that's our actually now I painted. I'm sorry, the tail fins I painted. No, I stand corrected. I had painted just the little tail fin steering tabs. The actual black and white down there is the sticker, the one that you just peel off and stick on. Guten Tag, Anschlag. Well, a clean parts box is a sign of a sick mind. Yeah, those there's a couple of other guys who make them, but those prints that you can put on your ST's rockets or your model rockets, and by the way, you can then scale them down in the printer for a regular model rocket if you wanted to, but the detail that's printed on is fantastic. There's no way I could reproduce it, not with my limited skills. Oh, thank you. Since you brought that up, we'll go ahead and jump into that. We were going to do some talking about rigging, and I've learned a bunch of techniques while I was doing this thing, and well, everybody organizes them for a while, Ray, but you're really OCD if you can keep it to stay that way. But the lot to learn. Lesson number one. I know Trey's does a great job using this knitting thread, and I was able to stretch some of it out, but I don't think you're going to beat Easy Line. He's also generally working on somewhat smaller models that don't have. This thing's just got so much flex, and the lines are stretched so far that even a slight bit of slack in it causes a large bow. John, I was just talking about you. Fast Sports just joined us. Hey, Max, glad you're here. I was just telling him about the motorcycle man, the tanker that you converted into a motorcycle rider. And you need to send me some pictures of that for the next viewers build, because that really looked good. Oh, thank you, Charles. The only piece of rigging I left off because I'm missing one of the bomb racks is a piece of rig on the bomb rack. I made it a point to put in every piece of external rigging and not to skip any. And a lot of folks gave me a lot of great advice. Some of it was kind of intuitive, like work from the inside out. And I thought I would talk about a few lessons I learned on this model that a lot of people go, well, duh. But, when you're in the midst of building a kit, it's not always quite so obvious. But the first thing is following the instruction sheets to the letter. I should say in the order that they do it can kind of make some things a little bit harder. The instruction sheet shows you the rigging. It does not tell you how to mount the rigging or when the rigging should be installed. And I know some guys are believers in build the whole model, rig it last, others rig as you go. Everybody agrees work from the inside out. That's pretty straightforward. But things like the engines, there were some things that you just can't rig until you get it assembled, because they'll put the struts out of place. And of course, alignment's a big problem, especially with something that big. Now, the Wingnut Wings kits are as good as they're going to get with the alignment, but as good as it is, it's still styrene, and it's when you get everything in there, you're going to realize the engines are not necessarily in complete alignment with each other. You keep tweaking and pushing and twisting. Pre-painting stuff, I saw the book that I think it was Mark sent me on the building of Wingnut Wings models, and most of the stuff obviously is pre-painted before it goes together, which causes its own problems, but that's the only way you're going to get a lot of the details painted. Of course, obviously you have to be careful, try and keep the mounting points free of paint. When it comes to the rigging the gas patch turnbuckles, Trey's had made a point. He was right that if you get 1/32 scale turnbuckles, they look kind of big. The 1/72 ones or 1/48 scale ones look better, but of course they're tinier and harder to work with. You look at pictures of the real airplane and that magnificent build that's in the book, and you can kind of see what they're talking about. But it is what I needed and didn't have, but I do now because he sent them to me, were those micro drills. You need to be able to drill a hole that's just the right size for the base of that turnbuckle to glue into it. You can pre-thread one of the turnbuckles if you want to. I don't know how that's going to work, but now the way the guy did it was he painted the model, then put the turnbuckles in, being very careful to remove as little of the paint as possible, and that's fine. But you definitely want that hole and you remember you're doing these teeny tiny little things. You're basically doing microsurgery, but it really is important, and I would probably recommend CA glue, but you've got to get a really good bite on that thing, because you only have like 1/8 of an inch of stem, and of course easy line, if you pull a little tension on it, it's not putting a lot of pressure on it, but that model will be sitting on the shelf under constant pressure. And some of these things, these gas patch turnbuckles, popped out on me halfway through building, because that line I was using doesn't have any give to it, so if I bumped it, it immediately pulled on it, whereas easy line would give you some slack. So and sometimes I would just tie it. You can see some of them down there just tie it off at the base, because I only had a few of the gas patch turnbuckles and I wanted to use them in the most visible areas, but most of these things are simply tied off at the base, which is the way a lot of model builders do it, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But some guys just do direct glue attachment. The paint becomes a lot of the problem. You think you've got it glued down, and then it pops off because it was actually glued to the paint and hadn't really bitten into the plastic. So clean surfaces for a good glue bond are incredibly important. But pre-painting the model is, I would say, pre-paint the part, drill your gas patch holes or your turnbuckle holes, or if you're going to use the direct line attachment, make sure that, of course, once you drill into it, you're going to have clean plastic, and make sure that it goes in there, it's snug, but can slide in the hole enough, and whatever glue you use, and give it a good solid bond. Rigging's the reason I build figure kits, I can believe it. Was hanging a large picture, was wondering if they make certain size gauge hanging wire for rigging. Not that I'm aware of, but it's possible, I suppose. Well, John, actually, it's funny you should mention that. The fellow I built the stagecoach for asked me if I'd do a sailing ship for him, and I'm so backed up on projects I had to turn him down. I felt kind of bad because he's very generous to me but I was like, it would be 2 years before I could get to it. But yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, if the Wingnut Wings instruction booklet is a historical document. The level of insane detail and the way things go together, you can look at that, and you without trying, you start learning about why these airplanes were designed these ways and what these things did and how they worked. For example, one of the reasons that the Felixstowe does not have cowlings over the engines, of course, cowlings were not quite as common back then as they are now. A lot of aircraft had exposed engines. But you notice that it has the hatch right here on the lower left going right over, and there's one on the other side. The model only comes with one of them open. But they're sliding opening hatches, so the crew chief can go out in flight and work on the engine. And that was just the way it was done. And he's in there between the rigging, but he's not wearing a parachute nor probably a safety harness. Of course, the plane didn't go that fast. But wing walking to work on the engine in flight was just part of the job, because they just figured, well, that's just the way it's done, right? I mean, what's the big deal? It's 1918. Odds are I won't see my 40th birthday anyway. I'll die of something. And so, yeah, let me just go out here and work on this piping hot, scalding, running engine in flight with a non-feathering propeller. So it's all important to keep it going. And no, that airplane was not staying in the air on one engine, I don't believe. They didn't have a feathering prop, and I doubt those engines had the power to drag the dead one. Well, Bob, it's all about scale. And one of the things about wingnut wings, there are three primary sizes of rigging that you use. One size for strut bracing, one size for control cables, and one size for other rigging. And I think it was mostly 0.25, 0.5, and I forget what the other one was. And they're color coded. Because the strut bracing was different sizes also. And I did use 3 different sizes of thread, but the deal is, take a piece of whatever wire you think you're going to work and just see how it works on your own. Just see how it looks and how it works. If you can glue it in place, if the glue will bite into it. But also, and the reason everybody pushes easy line is, one thing all these airplanes had in common was that the rigging was very tight. In fact, if you go to a museum or an air show and you see one of these old World War I airplanes, you're going to realize a lot of it is wire. It's metal strap. Some of it's cable, some of it's wire, but some of it's metal strap. But it's always very, very, very tight. You rarely see much slack in it, or any slack in it. And the reason is, maybe in some of the early monoplanes, and the reason is that the limited structures technology they had back then, and the materials they were working with, simply could not take the stresses of flying. So all these wires literally had to counterbalance each other and hold everything into place. Now you think about it, in 4 years, we went from these spaghetti wired airplanes, and look at these old Aircos and stuff like that, and BE-2s, and Eindeckers, all the rigging all over them. And 3.5, 4 years later, you're flying the DR-1 and the DR-8, the D-8, which have almost no external rigging. Even by the time the D-7 came out, it really doesn't have very much. So they were making quantum leaps in structures and design during the war. And we all know this, we hate to say it, but war does push technology. And Bob, you got that 148 Airfix swordfish. I actually was just taking a picture earlier of the Nova 148 swordfish I built earlier, which is an old frog kit. And we're going to be talking about that kind of stuff in a little bit. Yes, in fact, hi, Steffi Kohler, glad you made it. Steffi Kohu, sorry, don't mean to say that. Hey, Rob. But it's almost like